All right, here with the Italian Sports Guys. Bada boom.
Bada bing.
And today, a little special show for you tonight. I am remote. I'm up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana at the lovely L'Auberge Casino and Hotel, and Kyle's back in New Orleans.
Craigie boy took the show on the road, but I stayed home. Holding down the fort here, Craig.
Hey, thanks, Kyle. I appreciate that. Of course, it's a good time to be a fan of football in Louisiana, specifically Southeast Louisiana, and 2 more wins for our Saints and LSU and Tulane as well. But starting with the Saints, of course, Kyle, I just want to give 2 kudos to start off the discussion here. Number one, Sean Payton in the defense, and let me clarify. Certainly, Sean Payton, the reason being, I think so many times from week to week, we can't figure out who these teams are in the NFL because they're so up and down. And how many times have we talked about the Saints being a letdown game, a trap game, and they still come out and give a consistent effort?
Well, it just goes back to having a veteran roster and a deep roster. And I think it's something that he trusts, and they trust him. And this is a team playing without its marquee player. That's not a newsflash. Yet they turn around and they all trust the process. They trust the system. They trust the coaching staff, and they trust each other. And they go on the road, and it's business as usual. And they're 3-0 because of it.
Yeah, and also going back a few years ago when they said we're going to get this locker room right first and foremost, and that really started to show.
Yeah, I think, again, that was, we had some players who could really play on Sundays. The problem was Monday through Saturday with a lot of those guys, and I think that those were guys who were influential guys. They were marquee guys on both sides of the ball, but I think you had a real core group of leaders on this team, some veterans, some fairly young guys, but they were all kind of the same dude that went up and said, hey, this guy yes and this guy no, if we think we want to get back to where we were. And I think they did that, and this is where you bear the fruits of your decisions if you make the right ones. And certainly the Saints made the right ones, it looks like, from a not a player personnel but a player personality standpoint, if there is such a thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and you look at Sean Payton also. I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves here, but certainly what he's navigated through with this team this year, he has to get some consideration for Coach of the Year if this team continues to play as well as they have.
Absolutely. I mean, look, this is a guy, it's not new that it's not newsflash that he's a fantastic coach. I mentioned earlier he was 3-0 without Drew. It's actually 4-0 without Drew, which tells you, again, that this is a guy, where they've put the right roster together, they've got the right system together, and they didn't blink when things got a little dicey. The Rams game, you kind of knew fairly early in that one that, okay, today's not our day, but immediately started, kind of gearing towards what life would be without Drew, whether he's going to miss 1 week or 6 weeks. I think also he didn't press the panic button, and there was no knee-jerk reaction. How many times did you probably want to say, hey, let's get Taysom Hill even more time now that Drew's out? I even called that would be the process, but common sense prevailed, and they say common sense isn't that common, at least not in my case, where it got to the point where he said, if I put Taysom out there like I have been and he gets hurt, they're going to tee off on Teddy Bridgewater, and we're really going to have a problem. So, Ted Ginn or Alvin Kamara out of the Wildcats. So,
yeah. And moving to the defensive side of the ball, we talked about, maybe this team making the jump to a top 10 defense, and it did happen last week. Third consecutive game with 260 yards or less by their opponent. Kudos, a shout-out to Lenny Van Gilder, our friend over at Crescent City Sports. He mentioned that's the first time that's happened since 1992, back in those Dome Patrol days. Really getting, at least the last 3 weeks, certainly at that elite level.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that and you're saying, my goodness, we'll never have another defense like that. We'll never have another defense like that. And lo and behold, at least for the moment, we have a defense who's at least playing as well as they did. And we always used to say, if you could have paired Sean Payton's offense with those Steve Sidwell, Jim Mora defenses, man, we'd have won Super Bowls. Well, you kind of sort of have a Sean Payton offense now, and you have a defense that's putting up at least numbers to what the Dome Patrol did. So from that standpoint, as long as everybody stays healthy or out of trouble, hashtag PJ Williams, you can really, the Saints will be there. What happens? Look, anything can happen. We saw that last year and the year before. But all you can do is come back and put yourself in that position again, and they continue to win on Sundays and do that. So a lot of football left, long way to go. But right now I'm impressed and a little bit proud of how they've showed up.
Yeah, I know we talked about in the preseason and during training camp, just a couple of pieces added to this defense. Eli Apple getting his first full year with the Saints, Davenport reaching that next level, a couple of free agents sprinkled in, Brown, and a couple of draft guys. I know Chauncey Gardner Johnson had some contributions. But really, I think it's all starting with the defensive line play. They're really getting a great rotation and a push. That's really, I think, trickling down through the rest of the defense.
How many times did we sit there watching games and text each other with the rest of our hooligan cousins, friends, uncles, whatever, and say, where's the pass rush? Where's the pass rush? And we can only get it with a blitz in so many cases. They're controlling the line of scrimmage in a big way right now, and it's making the back seven look a lot better. Cam Jordan had had a great game the other day. He was up in Gardner Minshew and Minshew Mania's face like there was no tomorrow, and I think Sean Payton, there was even a quote where he told the team after the game, we could have played another 4 quarters. I don't think they were going to score a touchdown on us today. That's what happens when you control the line of scrimmage, and you go back and look, how'd we get so good right there? Well, you have 4 first-round players on that line that I can think of off the top of my head. Hendrickson's a third. Onyemata was a third or a fourth. You got some guys on that line who have some real pedigree there, and it's it's bearing fruit again. This is where you benefit from all those good decisions you made. So.
Yeah, and credit to, this coaching staff and Sean Payton. He said, we want to make this quarterback play in the phone booth was the words he used. He realized that this quarterback really liked to get out in space and improvise a bit, but was not very comfortable. And you could see that. At times they weren't really rushing hard upfield, but they were pinning him in, and it really led him to hit some rush throws and even some interceptions at times.
Well, what happens with an inexperienced quarterback or a new quarterback and rookie quarterbacks is they're amped up. They have all this energy usually. They have a lot of talent. And the problem is the head game. You can get inside their heads a little bit. But as far as that, matching them energy and all that sort of thing, they just want to pick a direction and run. Put it that way. They want to see what they're supposed to see in coverage, or see what they're supposed to see in the formation, and they want to attack it. Whether it means taking off and running or rolling out and throwing, safety high, left side, roll right kind of deal. Well, the Saints didn't do that. They kind of slow played it and made him start to think until he got uncomfortable. Then he went after him. I think that was a tremendous way to go after a rookie quarterback. Look, you do that with a guy who's been around for a while, he'll pick you apart. But a guy like this, you made him keep thinking and do more thinking than playing, and it paid dividends. He sacked him twice, and he scrambled a bunch of times. So.
Yeah, and I know this team has struggled last year, and they struggled a little bit this year. They were 2-3 coming in, but let's give them kudos where kudos are due. I mean, you look at DJ Chark was number 4, I think, in receiving yards. Fournette was 3 in the league in rushing, and Minshew had, I think, the 6th highest QB rating of any quarterback in the league. So you hold that team to 11 first downs and 226 yards. That's no small task.
Gardner Minshew threw for 375 yards a week before, okay? He's proven he can play in this league against some people. But like he said afterwards, hey, it was a tough day, and the Saints are a damn good team, and he's right, This is where somebody did enough scouting on him to say, hey, like you said, let's put him on his heels, pin him back, and so many times you saw him kind of sort of scrambling back into his left,
Yeah, and you mentioned the 2 sacks for Cameron Jordan. They were both in big spots, too. You had one that forced a field goal in the red zone. It could have, third down, and another third down that, I guess, stopped the drive, too. So some big spots. Also looking at some guys who stepped up this week. I thought Jared Cook only had 3 catches, but all 3 big ones. I think 2 third downs and that 1 touchdown reception. That was a pretty tough catch. And we got some a contribution more so than the last few weeks, so Latavius Murray.
Yeah, we've been saying that there was going to be a game where he really came of age. And this Saints offense is not easy to learn. It's not an easy system to pick up. And so maybe there's a little bit of that comes into play, because when Drew's out there, he's going to go across the board with the audibles and the checkdowns and everything else. And Teddy Bridgewater's been here a little bit too, where now he's kind of in that spot where he knows the checkdowns and the audibles and everything else. So you're looking at some possibilities that maybe this guy just wasn't completely comfortable with the system yet. So, lo and behold, maybe he's grown into that part where, hey, he's gotten a few more reps with Kamara being hurt, familiarity of the terminology a little bit. He's been there a little bit longer now, and he's kind of really came into his own, I thought, and it showed. I mean, he looked like he was really kind of just very comfortable in that offense. And then Jared Cook, as you mentioned, here's a guy, same thing kind of. Before you don't want to disappoint. You're kind of the marquee acquisition from a free agent standpoint for this team, so you don't want to disappoint anybody. you want to show up and show out in front of your new team and your new town and everything else. And finally, I guess once he got berated enough and was a little bit of an afterthought on the offense, he relaxed, and now he's really stepping up when he's needed most. So great to see that from him, because you know how it is when if you're lucky enough to get in the playoffs in this league, you need all hands on deck.
Yeah, and you look at Teddy. I thought he clearly missed some throws early on. I think he was a little inaccurate at times early. I think he has a tendency at times to get into a bad habit of throwing off the back foot and the ball sailing on him a bit. But, when I looked up after this game was over, his numbers were much better than I really anticipated. He was 67% still, completion percentage. Again, he had some big plays on third down and that touchdown. A touchdown pass was a small window. I mean, it's a high throw to Jared Cook, a little bit higher, it's over his head. A little bit lower, it's going to hit the defensive back. So I thought in some big spots, third downs and the touchdown pass, he was big.
I thought he really agree with that in terms of he made some really tough throws into some tight windows at times. What I need to see from Bridgewater, and I think a lot of people need to see, is some consistency throwing the football. There were times when, and I'm trying not to let the emotion of the game get the best of me when I'm watching it, but I can look back and say there were times when he looked bad. He looked off,
he left
and left a lot of yardage out there, and a lot of big plays out there. And there were, he made some too. I'm not trying to take away from that, but I was really, really, really pumped up and on the Teddy Bridgewater bandwagon after the last couple of weeks, and I thought he took a step back overall. But again, just win, baby.
Yeah, and I have to another kudos to the coaching staff just for adjusting at halftime. I thought really disappointing at half. They only had 8 carries for 11 yards. They just weren't committing to the run enough. And by the end of the game, we had over 100 yards rushing, 33-27 time of possession. So again, understanding the importance of having balance. And I was impressed with that drive late in the game. We got the ball, I guess, with 6 minutes left and never did give the ball back. So again, understanding the importance of the balanced offense.
Yeah, I mean, that's, the Sean Payton staple, is when he had every second accounted for late in games like that. And it wasn't always like that here in town. We can go back to lots of foul-ups at the end. And so to see that and to see it on the road, he knows exactly what he wants to do and calls the right plays at the right times, and the players executed. And I'll give Bridgewater that. He hit some big passes in the fourth quarter, and if you're going to hit him, that's the time to hit him. Yeah,
no doubt. And Saints, again, moving to 5-1 by most of the power rankings, top 2 or 3 teams in the league. And again, you have to look at the quality of victories too. We said early in the season the wins over Seattle and Houston would get more impressive, and if you look at what those teams have done since, it certainly is the case.
Yeah, we got to be at least in the AP top 5, right?
That's it. No question.
But I guess it's a good segue to the college game for us, right? I know the Saints.
There you go.
A big one up in Chicago this Sunday, but we'll focus on that one next week.
Yeah. Well, speaking of AP, LSU gets a win, and certainly the question here was could this offense and Joe Burrow specifically, who's been thrown into the Heisman race, deservedly so, could they excel against a really solid defense? Florida came into this game with some very impressive defensive numbers, and LSU just took them to task. I don't know how you can say it any different. 500-plus yards, balance, over 200 rushing. And Joe Burrow, just so efficient and great, just the decision-making. There's a lot that goes into the decision-making in this run-pass option offense. Just the decisions you have to make quickly without a lot of time to make those decisions. And 21 of 24 for 293, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Yeah, I mean, look, you watch. Put it this way, I'm starting to look for the right words here. He is completely. He wants the ball. He wants it at crunch time. He wants the pressure. He wants the decision making. He leads that team. I mean, he was talking to them after the game about things that they have to improve on, things they have to get better on. And I thought that was just tremendous that he even could go there after that. Most people that age would have absolutely just went out and partied under the umbrella of victory. At least I would. Well, I did, and I haven't been in college in a long time. But yeah, he was. I thought he was fantastic, and like you said, so many tough decisions to make. And he's a maestro. He's in charge of all of that, Craig. And the best thing you can do is let your playmakers and let your players make plays. And LSU is, with the addition of Joe Brady and that passing offense, is just doing that. They're having they've put all this great talent we knew we always had in position to hurt people, and your best 11 against our best 11 is starting to become the normal. The normal outcome is that LSU's 11 is better than everyone else's that they've played so far.
Right. And again, I mentioned the balance. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 13 carries, 134 yards. I was a little bit concerned early in this game that again, we were losing the time of possession and that our defense would wear out. Our defense did look shaky early on, but the reason being, we hit for so many big plays. I'm not sure there's a lot you can do about it when you're scoring and you're getting yardage in big chunks. I mean, we had only 1 of 4 on third downs. They were 9 of 17 because we just never got the third down. It was impressive how our offense played.
And look, you go back to last year's game against Florida, and it looked like from in the trenches they took it to us. They did. I mean, it was a close game, but they kind of beat LSU up a little bit at the line of scrimmage from a defense to the offensive standpoint. And LSU's offensive line took it a little personal this year, and they were not going to have that happen again. I'm not saying that LSU's front five will get drafted before most of Florida's front four. I don't think that's the case. But I'll tell you what, they showed up, played like a group in unison, and worked their butts off all week, obviously, and showed up big time on Saturday night. It was an electric atmosphere in Tiger Stadium, by the way.
No doubt. You mentioned the physicality, 9.1 yards a carry of rushing the football. Impressive. And I mentioned a little bit of a concern defensively in the first half, at least anyway. You have to give them credit, though. From the time we went down 28-21, 21 unanswered, and the defense from that point on, 3 and out, interception and turnover on down. So, boy, in the big moments late in this game when they needed to take over, they really did.
Well, that's a Dave Aranda effect. People are asking a bunch of questions because we're not the dominant defense that is, where we're winning games 14-10 and everything else. Look, it's a different team. Doesn't mean the defense isn't going to show up and make big plays. They're just not going to probably be quite as dominant. Nobody in college football these days is really quite as dominant. I think the only defense that you'd sit there and say, my goodness, they've been tremendous all year, shutting people out from a scoring and yardage standpoint, might be Wisconsin. And aside from Michigan State, I don't think they played anybody whose name I recognize.
Yeah, no doubt. So, and you look at just defensively. I know Darryl Stingley had a couple of plays where he got beat on a couple of drives early on. But I know I think it was Mike Detillier said it's kind of like Florida was kind of like sticking your hand in a piranha aquarium. Sooner or later you're going to get burned. And so he came up with a huge interception that really turned this game around. Well,
I thought he really played well. And look, he's a freshman. He's going to have moments where he's got to get past he's going to get tested. This kid that he was covering was a 6'6" tight end wide receiver hybrid. Okay?
Yeah.
He's going to get his. And then they had a bogus roughing the passer call when Marcel Brooks hit Kyle Trask in the hip, and they called it a low blow. Hit him in the hip with his shoulder pads, and they called it roughing the passer, going low on him. Christian Fulton had that interception and brought it back deep into Florida territory. Yeah. Gave him the ball and an automatic first down again, and LSU still stopped them. So the defense had to stop them, on several occasions and did so, and once did so and didn't get credit for it. As far as Stingley goes, look, there's going to be times when the matchup throughout sports, even the best of the best. Pat Swilling was dominant for years. Remember the tackle Mike Ken, I think his name was, from the Falcons. He couldn't get past the guy. He couldn't beat the guy, ever. Sometimes the other guy matches up better than you. But by and large, I'll take Derek Stingley Jr. 8 days a week to play cornerback for my team. And he ended up making a big play that was a big momentum swing in the game anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and certainly with the Georgia upset loss, really stunning loss at home against South Carolina, it moves LSU up in the polls and power rankings, etc. Looking ahead to next week, of course, we mentioned Saints at Bears. Hard to imagine this game won't be very much the type of ball game we played in Jacksonville. The defensive struggle with, really just a few key plays here and there, and maybe some turnovers making the difference.
Is Teddy Bridgewater and Chase Daniels the backup bowl? Is that what we're looking at, or is Mitch Trubisky back for the Bears yet?
I think it's still up to be determined. I'll say this. I think Sean Payton's probably seen enough to Chase Daniel to know what to do against him defensively.
Right. I no disrespect to a former Saint, but I sure hope it is Chase Daniels. So
yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to find something here, Craig, about Trubisky and his injuries and whatnot. But either way, man, the Saints are operating as a team right now that their main focus is on what they can do. And they're not trying to figure out anybody else, and they're just worried about themselves, and that's a great way to do it. So from that standpoint, I like our chances, but we're going to be underdogs going in there on the road with our backup quarterback. So the little hometown return of the prodigal son for Sean Payton, I guess. That's where he's from. He's from that Naperville area right outside Chicago.
Yep, and the place he played his first conference championship ball game as well. A little revenge there, too.
Absolutely. And his only NFL snaps came in the 87 strike season with the Spare Bears, they called them. Ditka's replacement players. And that's right. I was at that game in 06 when the Bears put us on it for the NFC Championship game, and they went on to lose the Super Bowl, and we didn't make it back to the championship game until 3 years later when we went on to win ours. But yeah, I remember some of the comments and the snowballs and hearing about it, even though they won. I get being angry at the visiting team if they beat you, but they beat us, and we were lucky. We had good seats and we're in a good spot. But I did see in the bathroom a lot of people putting up with a lot of crap, and I know as a city, New Orleans hasn't forgotten about that. So I'm sure they'll have some Hoodats up in that number up at Soldier Field this week, and we'll see if they've grown up as we have any.
Yeah, and looking at certainly this could be the last game before Drew's return. He's shooting for the Cardinals game. Now, whether or not the coaching staff will hold him out one more game beyond that bye, we'll see, but he is targeting that game for his comeback. Looking to the college ranks, we mentioned LSU at Mississippi State this week. So, again, the game on paper, Mississippi State's a team that lost to Kansas State. They beat Kentucky, but then lost consecutive games on the road to Auburn, and last week to Tennessee, a really bad look. This game, obviously, Kyle, on paper is a mismatch, but that's why they play the games. And certainly this could be one of those ones they point to sort of salvage their season, of course.
Absolutely. It's a trap game for the Tigers, Craig. I couldn't agree more. Those traditional Mississippi State teams these last few years have had those big, thick offense and defensive linemen and just enough skill around them to give they beat LSU 2 years ago on this field 37-7. Let's not forget that.
That's right.
And then LSU put it on them last year in the rain over in Death Valley, but they've posed problems for LSU these last few years, but I think LSU's clearly overmatches them right now. But again, like you said, that's why you play the games, and they don't have that this year with those big, thick linemen. They don't have enough of them at least. So I think LSU will have a chance to really dominate in the trenches and make the plays they need to make. Now Mississippi State still has some playmakers, but they've just lacked consistency all season, but when they're on, they can play with anybody. So Tigers can't take them lightly, or you'll find yourself in another dogfight. So I'd like to see us go over there. It's a 2:30 kickoff. We avoided that 11 o'clock kickoff. 2:30 kickoff, handle business, and then get back to Baton Rouge. So,
yeah. All right, Kyle, before we wrap it up, I just want to say again, kudos to the Tulane Green Wave, of course, winning again. Now they're on the verge of bowl eligibility for the second consecutive year, which will be the first time in, I think, over 30 years they've accomplished that. So, again, they were big favorites, and they lived up to that billing this week. So, congratulations to Fritz.
The Wave is 5-1, Craig, and they have a big test this week. They're going to be playing Saturday night at Memphis. Memphis is going to be a little angry. They were upset by Temple last week, but were undefeated going into that game. So you have two AAC 5-1 teams getting ready to go at it. Memphis is the home on Memphis's home field on ESPN, I believe, too. The Deuce Saturday night. So LSU and Tulane both on national TV this Saturday. That'll be a great 6.5 hour run for all of Louisiana. And the Wave are for real, man. Don't sleep on them.
Yeah, no more Ocho for the Green Wave these days.
They're not even no more Quattro. They're all the way up to the Dose. So,
right.
But
all right, Kyle. Any more closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
I'm good, Craig. Just real quick, too. High school football heating up, and very impressive victories over the weekend. John Curtis beat St. Aug in the Catholic League, and Rummel shut out a very good Brother Martin team, 30-0. Never saw that coming. The Rummel defense is halfway point in the season. You have to give up a touchdown.
Yeah, I was at that game. Very impressed. Great day for football, number one. But number two, you mentioned they've only given up 2 field goals, and they have 4 shutouts and 2 field goal games. So very impressed. This defense is for real.
Yep, can't wait to see Rummel if they both stay on the track. Rummel and Curtis collide at the end of the year for all the marbles.
No question. All right, that about wraps it up for this week, folks. We'll be on top of the action next week after hopefully Saints road victory and another LSU win. We are
the Italian Sports Guys.
Bada boom.
Bada bing.